I'd like to find the road we roam together, swinging along, finding the long way home. We didn't mind the time or place or weather, singing a song, finding the long way home. Remember, I used to sigh at the end of each day, dear.
What is happening, house lovers and explorers? Welcome back to another video. And this one is another history-packed episode with lots of old items that I recovered behind the old fireplaces of a home just before it was demolished. Now, there have been several homes in the past where I was able to save items such as photos, letters, cards, receipts and wrappers. Also a variety of oddities which enabled me to do some research and then provide a very interesting and accurate timeline for the home's history. And today's home is no different. In fact, this one is quite unique as the items that I recovered confirmed previous residents and also references links to nearby neighbours, including the old Baptist church, which I have uploaded in a previous video, but I will reference that again in this video. But the old items have left a few unanswered questions which we'll get into soon. My regular viewers would be quite familiar with the suburb of Glandore here in South Australia and the large portion of homes that have been demolished to make way for the tunnel project. And this old Edwardian villa is one of those homes. And it was actually one of the first ones to go, and when I got here there was a salvage process underway. And usually this is quite frustrating as we don't get to see the place in its full glory. But on the other hand, when the fireplaces and floorboards are removed, it exposes long lost items of history that we can then marvel at and use for research. Luckily, there are some amazing real estate photos of the home from 2019 which will showcase this gem, and they will complement my explore and what I have recovered and uncovered via the research. So what I think we'll do, guys, is start the explore of the home, then get into the history when we get to the fireplace with all the old items. Alright, let's get into it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all enjoy. What's happening, house lovers and explorers? Alright, that opening shot and the photo is what this place looked like. And yes, it's another one of the homes being lost to the underground tunnel that will be built here very shortly. I've filmed about 5 or 6 of these homes, probably more actually. An old church, old units and stuff, but this one has got some really awesome real estate photos that's going to do it justice. But even better, I found some old photos at the base of a fireplace and some old things. So they're going to give me a great tool and inspiration to do some research on this place, and I will add that as we go. But unfortunately, they have ripped the floors up and removed the mantles. But they are all in the real estate photos, guys. I have taken a quick walk through. And one thing I did find in this room was that old spanner that was in the soot there. It always pays to look in the base of these old fireplaces. But yeah, one room had a whole bunch of photos and bus tickets and tram tickets and old things that had fallen down, obviously behind the mantle, and they're still there. And as always keep an eye out for old tins sitting in the dirt. But look at those huge vents. Now, I've showed you these before. They've got the bird features in them. I'll get a photo of that and show you, it's probably easier. And the huge old ceiling roses. Now, another thing I noticed in the real estate photos, and you can see it here, that the windows, the front windows, it's almost like there was doors here. The architraves, the door skirting, go right down to the floor, and that's actually wooden. But there's obviously a window in there. I'm not saying that they were doorways, but it's not a common feature to have that wooden base. It's the same in the front room here. Well, at least they are reusing a lot of stuff in this one, because the mantles were beautiful. There's the hearth, still in place. Didn't really see anything in that dirt there, just some old pine cones. Looks like there was a big mirror there too, maybe. Now they have redone the lights with new bases. The actual switches could be reproductions of the old ones, but they're pretty close if they are. Beautiful archway. This one would be built around 1900, I would think. Very high skirting boards. It may be even a little bit older, but hopefully I uncovered that in the research. And as we get to the back, you'll see there's actually no backyard. The property was subdivided, and there's a home where the backyard was. So in here, guys, obviously there was a mantle here, and behind the mantle things fall down and they stay until the mantle gets removed. Beautiful photo of a lady there. I don't want to handle it too much yet. I want to clean it off. I am going to save these things. See, there's an office registration card there. SA Government. And there's a tramway ticket from 1942, the 23rd of May. And there's another photo of a young girl and a young boy there. And there's another little photo here of a lady. There's got a, oh no, it's a young boy. It looks like a school photo maybe, and there's another one there. It's folded over. Looks like it's the same photo. And there's a old packet of Capstan cigarettes. A bit of a letter there. I will clean all these off. Oh, there's another photo, guys. I didn't see that one either. Wow. That could be the same girl, same eyes. She's younger there, and then she's in her teens there. So, I'll show you just that now, but I will clean them off and give you a better look with some still images, guys. Alright guys and girls, let's get into the history of the home and the former residents and owners, and we will try and piece together who these items belong to and who may be in the photos. So what I'll do is I'll go through the names that were listed at the address and on the land title, and as we go I will show what items are linked to those names. So for the actual home itself, it seems to have been built around 1911, with the Gibson family first appearing here in 1912. W.J. Gibson, who was an engineer, resided here for about 10 years, when in 1921, Albert Edward Page, the newly appointed Reverend of the Black Forest Baptist Church, became the owner and resided here for only about 3 years. And this brings us to our first item, being an old envelope that somehow survived just well enough for me to be able to scan it, and it reads as follows. You are specially invited to attend the winter services in the Black Forest Baptist Church, July 1921. And there's also a half missing word of morning just at the bottom there. Now this envelope is a hard one to pinpoint who wrote it, but you would assume, being church related, it would involve the new Reverend and now owner of this old home, which is literally across the street from the Baptist Church. And that's the Baptist Church that I referred to earlier and have already uploaded. But the invite must have been written before July of 1921. The writing on the envelope is very childlike also, which is interesting. The old street directories are usually a year behind and often show discrepancies of accuracy when a change of residence occurs. For example, the street information for 1922 directory edition would be collected in 1921 in order to have time for it to be compiled and then printed for distribution. So in this case, W.J. Gibson is still listed here in 1921, but would have actually moved out during this year and Reverend Page then moved in. The question is, was it prior to July of 1921? Well, there were 3 relevant land titles that I was able to recover, with one showing a transfer of land from the original owner William James Gibson to Albert Edward Page, minister of the gospel. And yes, this was January of 1921, 6 months before the church service date on the invite. But the land transfer was for lot 58, which was the vacant lot next door. And this lot only ever had a dwelling built on it in 1960, which then became 3 Forest Street. So the only land title for lot 59, being our home here at 5 Forest Street, shows Albert paying mortgage in 1923. But the date of this balance is actually in January of 1924. He then transferred the property a month later to the next owner, which we will discuss soon, but it seems that there must be another title somewhere with the transfer from Gibson to Page for lot 59. Anyway, regardless, we have a confirmed date in January of 1921 for the Page family being involved here on Forest Street, but we still don't know who wrote the letter. The Baptist traditions allow ordained clergy to marry and have children, and Reverend Albert Edward Page was married in 1907 to wife Mary Edith, and they had 3 daughters and a son. Interestingly, and also unfortunately, their son Lewis Richard was born in August of 1920 and then only a year later passed away in November of 1921, but they would have certainly been residing at this address by then. Youngest daughter Marion, who would have been 8 at the time, may have written the envelope invite to a friend perhaps. It seems unlikely that another person's child would have written an invite to the Reverend or his children, inviting him to his own winter church service. Either way, it's right on the cusp of when the Page family would have came to live at the old house here at 5 Forest Street. And this old item is worth wondering about, but I think for this one, it's too hard to actually pinpoint exactly who wrote it. But as usual, I would love to know your thoughts on this in the comments, so feel free to jump in there and let me know what you think. Alright, moving on to the next owner, which was Percival Sidney James Craigie. And as mentioned, the property was transferred to him in February of 1924, and the Craigie name appeared the following year in the street directories. Percival married his wife Amy Roberta in 1915. They had 3 children, 1 son and 2 daughters, with the son James Walter being the eldest, born in 1916. Now this leads to another one of the items that I recovered from the fireplace, which is this well-wish card, and it reads, "Wishing you a glad and happy new year." As you can see, it is in 2 parts, and the lower part seems to have a biblical message at the bottom. But it's when we turn the card over, guys, we get to read this writing as follows. To Jim Craigie, from his PS teacher, which would mean primary school teacher. Now this last word and initial, I believe, is O FIDOC, and I will explain this shortly. But first off, we have the direct link to James Craigie. James, obviously always shortened to Jim, and with this time frame of the Craigie family being here at 5 Forest Street from 1924 to 1927, and James being born in 1916, he was definitely at the age for primary school, which would have been at the nearby Black Forest Primary School across South Road. Now the reasons I am confident that the name is FIDOC is firstly, the letter F in the word from on the card is a match for the letter before IDOC. Secondly, because while I was going through the street directories in Glandore, recording the names on Forest Street, I kept seeing the name FIDOC in nearby streets. So I used the initials GJR FIDOC, who lived on Railway Terrace, Glandore, and I put them into Ancestry.com and found a Mr. George John Roberts FIDOC and his extended family, which includes his 7 children. I searched for any clues regarding occupations as teachers, but there were none, so I figured it can't hurt to try a search of former listed teachers in South Australia. And what do you know? I found in the State Record Library a complete history of former teachers and dates of when they started and finished. Bingo! There was one teacher with the surname FIDOC, with the first name being Marjorie. And sure enough, old George John Roberts FIDOC had a daughter named Marjorie, born in 1905. Now the dates for her teaching are a perfect match for the time frame of the Craigies being in Glandore and James going to primary school, as she was teaching from January 1925 to July 1926. This would make James 9 or 10 when the card was given to him. But I know what you're all thinking. Marjorie does not start with the letter O, right? I went through all the first names of the FIDOC children and found that Olive May was 1 year older than Marjorie. The initial on the card is clearly not an M and distinctively resembles a classic cursive capital O as compared with this example here. So let's read this card again. To Jim Craigie, from his PS teacher, O FIDOC. Now there are only 2 ways that we can read this card, and the most obvious would be to think that the card is from O FIDOC, but the evidence suggests that it was handed to Jim Craigie by O FIDOC, which would be Olive's sister Marjorie. It boggles the mind, but perhaps Marjorie was unable to personally give the card herself. Marjorie was a teacher for only 19 months, finishing up only weeks before her marriage to Herbert Henley in August of 1926. From there, she would go on to have 6 children with husband Herbert. As for James Walter Craigie, he went on to become an army captain after serving during World War II in the 2nd and 10th Infantry Battalion. A great photo of him here in uniform from his online war memorial. He was married and had one daughter named Heather. He lived to the ripe old age of 91, passing away in August 2007. I couldn't help but look at these 2 photos that I recovered from the fireplace and wondered whether this could be young Jim in his primary school uniform. At first glance, you could say that there's a chance, as they are not blatantly unalike. But I guess the difference in years from boy to a grown man makes it harder to be sure. Interestingly though, the other photo of the boy and girl I do think are the same boy, with the school photo being of him a few years older than the one with the girl. Now Jim had 2 younger sisters, one named Velma, only 18 months younger, and another named Faye, born 10 years after him in 1926. The girl with him in the photo looks to be not too much younger, and they would both be around 5 to 7 years old, which would mean Faye, the younger sister, wouldn't be born yet and therefore absent from this photo. Something else that may support this being young Jim. What do you think, guys? Did I find old photos of James Walter Craigie, which include his sister Velma? Or perhaps they match other names at this address as we move on. So, in February of 1927, the Craigie family moved out when they transferred the home to Peter Henry Lockett and his wife Edith. Peter and Edith had 3 sons and they resided here at 5 Forest Street for only 4 years, when in 1932 a Mr. B. Sheridan is listed here as a labourer. 1 year later, a Mr. R. Weenan is listed here with the occupation of decorator. Now, one of the old items from the fireplace is a donation slip for a church, most probably the Black Forest Baptist Church. Now, the names on the slip are for a Mr. and Mrs. Weenan, and the donation amount is for 12-4, which would be 12 shillings and 4 pence, or 4 pennies. So I did a research on R. Weenan and found a father and son named Rudolph Weenan, which also went by the name Van Weenan. As you can see here, the same family members are present on both the Genie page and the Ancestry.com page, but the Genie page has them listed as Weenan and Ancestry has them as Van Weenan. In 1941, the Van Weenans are living close by as they are listed here on Goodwood Road. Rudolph is listed as a painter, which is also known as a decorator, which the R. Weenan at 5 Forest Street was listed for the 2 years of 1933 and 1934. Rudolph Jr. was not married until 1935, so the Mr. and Mrs. Weenan on the donation slip was probably his parents Rudolph Sr. and wife Edith. I guess the other possibility is that due to the donation slip being usually given to the church, it may have even made its way back to the home with Reverend Albert Edward Page while he was living here. Either way, it is yet another connection to a documented resident of this old home, and therefore would also be around 100 years old. The following years of 1935 and 36 saw Mr. N.T. Flight residing at the address, but with no connection to any of the items that I found. In late 1936, William Harold Perry and his wife Edna Jane, whose maiden name was Slee, moved into the home, and my research shows that Edna's mother Esther Slee was also residing here at this time. Now this leads us to our next item found from the fireplace, which is a very nice little piece of South Australian history, an official registration card for the South Australian Government Labour Exchange. Now I had to look this up to see what I could find, and from the details on the card, it seems to be for recording when a person is out of work with the Labour Exchange, and the Labour Exchange is in charge of finding and assigning work for the unemployed, and it shows this clearly in this old Trove article. The name A.C.H. Richardson is present in the article and on the card as the superintendent of the Labour Exchange. The label worker on the card is C.G. Slee, Clinton George Slee, which is the son of Esther and brother of Edna, who is married to William Harold Perry, now residing at 5 Forest Street. It is highly likely that Clinton was also residing here at least until late 1936, when Mother Esther acquired a house across South Road in Forestville at 28 Nan Terrace, formerly Railway Terrace, which is pictured here. Esther's husband, Walter, had passed away in March of 1935, which may have prompted the move and short stay at 5 Forest Street. In 1943, both Esther and son Clinton are listed at 28 Nan Terrace, Forestville, the house Esther acquired in November of 1936. Clinton is listed as an iron worker, which is also known as a railway worker, and that is quite fitting as Nan Terrace was formerly Railway Terrace. The last registration stamp on Clinton's exchange card was for July 1936, so perhaps he got that job not too long after and he and Mother purchased the house and moved out. As for the Perrys, they stayed at 5 Forest Street until 1939, where they then moved further up on Forest Street to 13A, which is this duplex dwelling pictured here. An interesting fact about Walter Slee, who was Esther's husband and father of their 6 children including Edna and Clinton, and that is that Walter was actually married first to Esther's older sister Jane. Walter and Jane had 5 children, but only 2 weeks after giving birth to their last child, a daughter also named Jane, Jane the mother passed away on November 9, 1892. And to make matters all the more tragic, little Jane passed away only 5 days later on November 14. Clinton was the youngest child of all, born in 1908 when Walter was 50 and Esther was 44. Clinton went on to live to the age of 88, passing away in 1997. It's amazing the journey that these items take you on when you dig down into them. There are so many other links, correlations and extra idiosyncrasies that I come across, but I have to try and keep it from getting too far away from the initial point, otherwise we'd be here for hours. And in saying that, guys, I hope you're all still with me, as I have rattled off a fair bit of info, but the next few residents are all linked to the same family, which will take us right into the 1950s, where we then end the research. So, will we find out who's in these last few photos, and what other items can be linked to these next residents? So, let's start with Ernest Alfred Tidswell, who was listed here from 1939 to 1941. Ernest was married to his wife Elsie May in 1929. Elsie's mother was also named Elsie, and she was married to Edward John Pope, who appeared at the address immediately after the Tidswells moved out in 1941. So daughter Elsie Tidswell moves out, and then mother Elsie May Pope moves in with her husband Edward John. Pretty crazy, right? But then Elsie and Edward John's youngest daughter, Thelma Lillian Fulton, moves in, as her married name is now Fulton. She married John Douglas Fulton in 1929 and had 2 sons, Donald and Neil Fulton. Her husband John Douglas passed away in 1936. And you can see Thelma listed here at 5 Forest Street in 1943 with the occupation of cotton spinner. Now for the next link, guys, as I found these 3 cards in the fireplace, and they are in pretty decent condition considering. And they are G-Men and Heroes of the Law cards, which were produced from 1935 to 1937. Bright action-filled pictures on one side and a short action story on the back. Now one of these cards has the name D. Fulton on the back above the story text. This would have to be Thelma Lillian's eldest son, Donald Fulton, who would have been about 7 years of age when these cards were released, and then lost behind the fireplace when residing here in the 1940s. Also lost down the back of the mantel in the early 40s was this little notebook, and written inside, clear as day, is Neil Fulton, 5 Forest Street, Glandore, SA, with a date of 28th of March 1942. The notebook only has these 2 pages left, So it looks like as though Neil maybe put his details in it when he first got it, and it looks to be maybe his signature on the right page there. And Neil would have been 10 years old at this point. So we have both of the Fulton sons referenced on separate items, and confirmation that they were living here with Mum Thelma, Grandpa Edward John Pope, and Grandma Elsie. Edward John Pope passed away in 1945, leaving wife Elsie May and daughter Thelma Lillian to both live here until 1952, when the home was then sold to Antel and Gisela Petho, who had the home beyond the 1970s. Now this inter-route weekly tram ticket I also found in the fireplace, which again is in decent condition and is dated from May 1942. So this would have to have been used by the Popes or Fultons while residing here. Well, that's it for the part of researching the residence, as this is where the links to the items stop also. So, we still haven't worked out who these two young ladies are in these photos. Now, these are probably the best two items recovered from the fireplace, and I had high hopes of finding out more about them and who they are. But I checked every name associated with 5 Forest Street and looked for any hits on the genealogy sites to match a similar photo, but came up empty-handed. To me, it looks as though the girl in both photos is the same girl. The girl's face and eyes are very similar, although she does have fairer hair as the younger child. The other photo, she seems to be about 11 or 12 and has a classic 1920s hairstyle. So with that said, if we had to guess a birth year based on this, I would think it would probably be around 1910 in my opinion. But without another reference photo, we would be only guessing as to who this young lady is. Thelma Lillian and her sister Elsie May Jr., who was married to Ernest Tidswell, were born in 1911 and 1908 respectively. So could it be one of them? I think we may never find out, unfortunately, guys and gals, but that won't stop me from doing more digging in the future, and it would be great to put a name or two to these photos. So what we'll do now is get back into the rest of the walk around, which will include showing the beautiful real estate pics, and I will do a bit of a wrap up in the outro as usual. Alright, well, let's get back into the explore. That's the part I really love about urban exploring, coming across old stuff like that. Pretty much the same in this room, guys. I'll give you a look out this window. 2 lots have already been cleared out over there. There's actually still a security camera just around the corner there. One of the mobile ones with the solar panels on it. Now this had the return veranda door. That ceiling rose is even bigger. That's over 1 metre across. Probably can't tell, but it definitely over 1 metre across in width. Yeah. Had a quick look there, couldn't see anything, guys. Look at the stonework here, guys. Beautiful old sandstone. Bullnose veranda. And this beautiful hedge for privacy. And beautiful rose bushes. Been beautifully pruned with the bowl inside. Yeah, these places, compulsory acquisition. The government says, right, we need your house, get out by this date. Now here's the kitchen, definitely an update, quite recent. There's another photo there, but it's from 2019, so I'm not going to show it. It's possibly the last occupants. I didn't take the stove, the chef. Now there must have been a beautiful window there for them to take it. So yeah, the kitchen and the dining room would have been right there. Bathroom and laundry. Now here's the bathroom. Possibly this whole back part was done when they subdivided the property, and they did all this area, bathroom and the kitchen, in one go. And there's a little laundry there. Lots of cupboard space here. And the carport. Only room for one car. But that wall basically is right against the fence, and that's where the property ends here. And this was just a little storage area where the hot water service is.
Alright, let's take a look at the real estate photos now, guys. And these were taken in 2019 when the place was sold, and they're from Owens Casserly. And they really do this old girl justice. So let's take a look.
Well, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that history that I found out. It really gives these old homes the backstory they deserve. I mean, they were people's pride and joy, and they grew up, loved, lived, and passed away in these old homes. And yeah, it really makes this whole thing worth it for me when you can put a story to these old homes before they go. And people can look at them well after they're gone and understand who lived here and how much they were loved. And obviously those real estate photos did it justice from what we're seeing now.
That is it for this one, guys and girls. I do intend to see if any of these old items can go to the relevant historical societies and even back to the relatives via Ancestry. And I'll do some more research in the future to try and find out who's in those photos, as I said. But at least for now, 5 Forest Street, Glandore has a little backstory that people can hopefully watch well into the future. I really enjoyed finding all the info for this one and putting it all together, so I hope you all did too. Thanks for watching, and I will move on to another one and see you all in the next video. Alright guys, cheers, bye.